Up in the sky! It's a bird!
It's a plane!
It's definitely not Superman. What's up, y'all? We are the Cinefanatics. Robert Adams.
Chris Adams.
And we are here today...
Wait, why are we here today? What movie are we reviewing again?
Brightburn, the Superman horror movie?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, you weren't there, were you? Oh.
Good luck.
Anyways, I'll scoot you over just a little bit. So, yeah, I went and saw Brightburn, and so right off the top, a lot of people are wondering, like, is this a Superman movie? It is definitely a very strong nod to Superman. That being said, I also would like to get into this review saying there's not going to be any spoilers for it. So, I mean, you know the story of Superman. The little baby crash lands on Earth from the planet Krypton. He gets adopted by the Kents, gets raised as their own, and discovers he has superpowers, and ends up becoming the Man of Steel. Superman origin aside, that's basically what's going to happen here with Brightburn. Kid crash lands on a Kansas farm. That was one of the few things I liked about this. That the Superman nods, while not really in your face, they're very subtle. And I didn't know right off the beginning that, first of all, the town is called Brightburn and that it resides in the state of Kansas. So a very nice nod to Smallville, where Superman and Clark Kent grew up. I also like the fact that not necessarily about Superman, but that the kid was named, was it Brandon Breyer? Which, if you look back at older comic books, and you probably already know this because of how prevalent comic book movies are nowadays, that a lot of the older comic book characters were named for alliteration. Like, you have Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, you have Scott Summers. So Brendan Breyer fits right in the mold of the old style naming of comic book characters, which was a great nod to that. So overall, for the story of it, even though the movie's called Brightburn, I would actually call this movie kind of a slow burn. It took a while to really get into the meat of Brendan Breyer becoming basically Brightburn. And there goes that alliteration again. There was a lot of, he is a kid, he is trying to figure out not only how to be a kid, but also he's got these powers, and then on top of that, the conflicting feelings, and again, not really wanting to spoil it, but what drives him to this, like, psychotic nature of essentially being a supervillain. There was a lot, I would say, in comparison with the Superman story, DC Comics story of Ultraman, which is basically the evil Superman, not Bizarro, who is basically the backwards Superman. So this is not Bizarro, but it is pretty close, I would say, in idea to Ultraman. The character development of this is good, and that's why I would say this movie's kind of a slow burn, because it does spend probably the first half of the movie just really building up the characters of Brendan and his parents. And pretty much everyone else around this town. They did want to make sure that you understood that this was a sleepy farm town, just like Smallville, so I think they conveyed that very well. The ending of this movie was fantastic. It ended in a way that, like, you almost think it could have ended, but not quite, but it actually does. And leaves open the possibility for sequels. The thing that they did leading into the possibility of there being sequels is fantastic. If at first you think that this movie is a heavy nod to Superman, the ending is just what really pushes it forward. And I am really eager to see if they do grow upon this, because it's a phenomenal idea, and I really, really like the direction it could be going. The acting of this movie, first of all, the kid, Brendan Breyer, was it Jackson A. Dunn, who was recently in Endgame as, like, the 12-year-old Ant-Man. When Scott went back and was doing the whole time testing thing, he popped up. So that's kind of funny, the fact that he was in a Marvel movie as a superhero. But he did phenomenal as this kid. This kid is easily conflicted, is torn between what he knows is right, being raised ever since a baby as a human with human feeling, emotions, and the sense of right and wrong, and then conflicted with what's ultimately driving him to become Brightburn, this psychotic Superman-ish character. His parents, it was Elizabeth Banks and David Denman. I think they did pretty well. I wouldn't quite call them the Martha and Jonathan Kent of the story, because Martha and Jonathan Kent were essentially, for all intents and purposes, the embodiment of caring and of love that Clark Kent needed to become Superman. I wouldn't say that they weren't loving and caring parents. They definitely were. But there was definitely like a small break in their character. And that's, I feel like, what helps push Brendan to become what he becomes. But the acting on their parts, both fantastic and phenomenal. I think they did a great job in those roles. And this is really good, given that this was not directed by James Gunn. It was produced by James Gunn, but it was actually written by his brother Brian and his cousin Mark, which just goes to show that, I mean, this family does have some talent as far as movie making. As far as James Gunn has been directing movies, he's directing the upcoming Suicide Squad and the next Guardians of the Galaxy. Finally, that Disney made that announcement that he is coming back. And then, of course, Sean Gunn has been acting as Kraglin in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and also the fill-in for Rocket when they've been filming, since Rocket's completely a CGI character. I think that they have a really good franchise on their hand, and essentially, while it does seem to be based on, like, at this point, Superman, they really do have an idea, some foundation laid here. And I dare say that this foundation is almost better than what DC Comics has originally cemented when they first released Man of Steel. I am eager to see where this goes, and I don't know. I'm completely clueless as to what could happen here. But anyways, that's going to do it for this review. Overall, I would say I give this movie probably about a 4 out of 5. Again, it was a slow burn, but you kind of need that to help develop the characters. And yeah, so 4 out of 5. Let's call it laser eyes. Yeah, that's just weird, but whatever. I'm thinking about this on the spur of the moment. So that's going to be my review for this. What did you think of Brightburn? Did you see it? Have you not seen it? Are you interested in it? Let's talk about it down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Also, there is a subscribe button up above my head. Make sure you subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Over here off to the sides are a couple other videos that the Cinefanatics have made. And as always, he stands for truth, justice, and bloody entrails. Later. That'd be awesome if they ever did this with Batman. How do you make Batman darker than he already is?